The definition for bipolar disorder, and there are two kinds of bipolar disorder, so I'll try to go through both for you. It's based on different kinds of episodes that you can have. There are depressive episodes, there are manic episodes, there are hypomanic episodes, which is basically just a shorter version of a manic episode, and then there's what's called a mixed episode, which is a little bit of depression, a little bit of manic. So with depressive episodes, so for bipolar 1, that's a person who has a depressive episode and at least one depressive episode, at least one manic episode. For bipolar 2, they have depressive episodes and no mania, but they have hypomanic episodes. So it's just a slight difference in terminology. So what these things look like is, for most of the time, a person will be in a depressive episode, and the requirements for that are there are 9 symptoms. You have to have at least 6 of them, which they're mood, low mood, very depressed mood, crying, tearfulness, things like that, every day, almost every day, all throughout the day. We call it anhedonia, but it's basically a disinterest in things that you'd normally enjoy, so like your hobbies or doing your work or things like that. There's a shift in appetite or weight. It can go up, it can go down, so it could be more or less. Same thing with sleep. There's either usually insomnia, so hardly any sleep at all, or hypersomnia. There's a lot of extra sleep, like 16, 17, 18 hours a day. There are changes in motor behavior, so very, very tired. A patient can be very tired, or there can be sort of like this agitated restlessness. It can be one or the other. There are definitely very, very strong difficulties with self-esteem, lots of worthlessness, hopelessness, helplessness. It's very extreme. And then there can also be thoughts of death or even suicidal ideation, and that can also include suicide attempts. So not all of those have to be present, but it's usually 6 of them. It's always 6 of them or more, and it has to be all the time across the board. It's not just, oh, I'm feeling kind of bad today. It lasts at least 2 weeks, so that's stringing that together all the time, and it really affects the person's ability to do anything. So when someone is truly clinically depressed, they aren't doing their work, they are isolated, they don't want to interact with people, they don't want to do anything. I mean, it's not just feeling down. So with a manic episode, it's almost the opposite. So the person gets, usually they call it grandiose. They start to have a very big personality. They're in an incredibly good or almost like agitated good mood. They're so excited all the time. And I'm going to refer to the book to make sure I get everything so that you understand it. So sleep goes down. They can sleep, maybe 3 hours would be a lot for someone in a manic episode. They feel like they don't need sleep at all, and they actually don't want to sleep because they're so excited about everything. They are super talkative, they're super agitated and restless and keyed up, they just don't want to sit still. They want to do all sorts of new and exciting things, and that's where, when I say grandiose, they have these just huge ideas and they just follow them without any kind of thought. The best example I have of that is I had a client who went into a manic episode and decided he was going to be the best photographer ever. So he spent $50,000 in 2 days on photography equipment, and when he came out of his manic episode, he realized he had no interest in photography really, and wasn't good at it and didn't know a thing about it. So they'll do these crazy things. They'll gamble, they'll be promiscuous, they'll spend and spend, they'll drain their bank account, and they just have no sense of consequence or that that's not the right thing to do. And so in that regard, then they're really looking for things that are pleasurable. They go on trips, they spend and do all sorts of things that are not good for them long term. And they also have trouble concentrating. In depressive episodes, there's difficulty with concentration, but it's usually very slowed and they can't focus, whereas when you're manic, you're just super distractible. So it's what's this, it's just all these, everything looks interesting and big and bright and amazing. Manic episodes last a very little amount of time, so it's usually 5 to 7 days. And so what you normally see with someone who's bipolar 1 is they'll have long periods of depression and then they'll have a burst of mania. And the only difference is with bipolar 2, hypomanic episode will just be, it's 4 days or less. But it's the same exact kind of symptoms. And then if there's a mixed episode, it just means that there's a whole bunch of mania and depression mixed together. It's not really one or the other, but it's got a little bit of everything. So when they call it bipolar, it's because you're up and then you're way down, 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 up, down, 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 up, down. And the biggest thing about this, and the reason it's so hard to diagnose, is because usually when people come in, they only come in for the depression part, because the depression part is awful. And while the mania is not great either, when you're up, it feels really good, even though you're not doing it. So that's what it looks like.